Good evening, Doctor. No, don't stand up. And yes, I am who you think I am. Let's not make any more of this than it is, shall we? You know my number, and I know enough about you to make a duplicate that even your mother wouldn't be able to tell apart from the real you. No, that's not a threat. Just a statement of fact. Now, on to my business here. It seems you've stumbled upon something above your original clearance level. Well, stumbled isn't the right word. Dug up, perhaps, yes. You're getting to the point where further digging would end in some fairly lethal gunshot wounds. This would be a very sad state of affairs, as you are otherwise quite a good researcher. Therefore, you are going to get something very few people in the Foundation ever get: an explanation. Yes, we were alerted when you first started digging into SCP-001. Every researcher who's been around long enough looks into it. Most are satisfied when they uncovered the angel with the flaming sword. But then, you started to look into the factory. And that's when I knew you wouldn't stop. So here it is, plain and simple. The factory is SCP-001. But it will never be written up. It was a choice I made early on in the Foundation's creation, and a choice I still stand by. You researchers are far too curious, and I'm not sure what scares me worse: that we'll never understand the factory, or one day we will. Anyway, I'm sure you're just eager to learn more. The factory was built in 1835. Back then, it was known as the Anderson Factory, named after James Anderson, a rather well-to-do industrialist. It was built in, well, we'll just say America, and was the largest factory yet ever designed. A good mile across at its widest and 3 stories tall throughout. A special 7-story tower by the front gate that Anderson even lived in. It was designed to be the ultimate factory, capable of taking care of everything, including housing of workers. People could be born, work, live, and die without ever leaving the confines of the factory. And work they did, on everything from cattle raising to slaughtering to textiles and everything else under the sun. Now, no one actually knew whether or not he was a Satan worshipper. It's just as likely he was some kind of pagan. What is known, however, was he was very exact in the building of his factory, and in the placement of his machinery within it. Survivors would claim the floor was engraved with arcane symbols that were only visible when blood flowed across it. But then again, the survivors claimed a lot of things. What is known is that Anderson made his money on the blood and sweat, and sometimes even body parts of the lower class. His journals indicate he thought of them as less than human, being put on this earth to serve him in his will. Of course, no one knew about these predilections, so people flocked to the factory in droves. A place both to work and live at the same time, of course people went there. Never mind the harsh hours, sadistic security force, working conditions, and all the rest. Factory workers were forced to work 16-hour days, work only shutting down on Sundays, between sunrise and sunset. Workers were not given individual rooms, instead sharing rooms with 8 other people, sleeping in shifts of 3. Medical attention was unheard of. If you were injured in the course of your duties, which most people were, you were expected to keep working. Anyone too injured to work was dragged off by the security and never to be heard from again. For 40 years, the Anderson factory cranked out all sorts of things for people. Meat, clothes, weapons. Never mind the beef might be mixed with human flesh. Don't care the weapons were forged in blood. No attention needs to be paid to the clothes that were dyed with... well, you get the idea. Rumors leaked out, but the products were so good, why bother? Until someone got out. I never did meet the brave soul who managed to escape, but she managed to meet with President Grant, and in 1875 he enlisted my aid. At the time, I was... well, it doesn't matter. Let's say I was military, kind of, and that my people were the same. 150 good men and some women, who were often given jobs that weren't supposed to be common knowledge. We'd been clearing out some Confederate holdouts and some of the worst things we found down south. So, we did some research, didn't like what we saw, and went in, loaded for bear. I don't actually remember how much of it went down. Most of it blends together in my head. I get flashes, sometimes. People chained to the line, living next to the dead, damned hard to tell which was which sometimes. Children, working underneath machines, the majority of their flesh scoured from their bones with the great wheels and cogs, among other things. No, I'm alright. I haven't thought about that night for so long. The security force wasn't much of a problem, but then Anderson's creations showed up. He'd been taking the injured workers and, well, experimenting on them. Men, if you could call them that, with multiple arms, sewn together, some of them combined with animals, horrible monstrosities out of mankind's worst nightmares. They kept coming, wave after wave of not quite living creatures. I lost a lot of good men that night. And then we found Anderson's breeding pits. Girls as young as 8, chained to the walls, forced me nothing more than... I'm sorry. Even today, more than a century later, the memory makes me see red. When we finally found Anderson cowering in his office, we hung him from his tower window, his own entrails hanging him there. As he died, he laughed, saying it didn't matter, that we could kill him, but his factory, the factory, would go on. He was still laughing 24 hours later when we cut him down. Had him drawn and quartered, then burned the remains. The entire time he uttered blasphemies I don't like to think about. We spent a week clearing that place out, freeing the workers, putting down things we found in the basement and many lightless rooms, pulled things out that were useful, stocked them in a house near the gate, tried to make sense of everything. 150 of us went to that hell pit that night. Only 93 came out. By the end of that week, we were down to 71. But the things we found there, my God. You've been with the Foundation a while, haven't you? They wouldn't seem as amazing to you, but we found toy guns that shot real bullets, a yo-yo that would flay the skin from anyone who touched it, hammers that only worked on human flesh, a breed of skeletal horse that ran faster than anything we've ever seen, cloaks that seemed woven from the night itself and let men access a shadowy dimension that... I get away from myself. We found tools, both wondrous and horrible, and we were faced with a choice. I gathered my highest ranking, we'll call them officers to me, and we tried to figure out what we would do. They all had opinions. The chaplain, he'd gone a bit crazy. He thought all these objects were miracles sent from God, holy relics to be worshipped. Marshall and his little toady Dawkins thought there was a fortune to be made, making and selling these things to the highest bidder. The Injun we called Base, due to his deep speaking voice. He called these things an abomination, declared that we should hunt them down and destroy everything we could find. Smith thought we should take this stuff back to the president. The only one without an opinion was the old man, but he never said much of anything to begin with. We argued for hours, days even, trying to work it out. Me, I thought we were sitting on a gold mine all right, but we could use these things, these objects, to hunt down some of the scary shit we ran into down south. The other monsters this world had to offer, and use this factory for good, a place to contain these things, find a way to make them work for our fellow man, or at least protect our fellow man from having to deal with them. I'm sure you can figure out what happened next. The chaplain snuck away in the night with his devotees, taking a couple small items with him. Marshall we kicked out after we found him abusing his authority. He'd promised he'd get his revenge, and that little shit Dawkins let Leslie creep off with some juicier items. Base and his people tried to light the whole thing on fire, and then just left when it didn't work. And Smith left, to report back to the president. I did manage to get him to promise me he'd tell Grant the factory had been destroyed, though. I had big plans for that place. Of course, it was kinda hard to follow through on big plans when you only have 12 people to work with, but, it was a start. And it worked for a while. We had these amazing toys, and finding people to work with us was easy. Back then, going off the grid was as simple as leaving town. We knew what we wanted, and we knew what we could be. Leventhal set out getting us backing. A simple invention here, some well-invested money there. It worked out. White and Jones set out getting us other backing. In our previous work, we'd found out some interesting things about people. Some secrets that powerful men didn't want getting out, and with our new position to help keeping secrets, we got people asking us to deal with their secrets. Blackmail is a dirty word, but it works. Bright, Argent, Lumino got to work cataloging items. Light and Bright's wife, the nurse, they made sure we kept ourselves healthy. Now, it's just remembering Light. She had unusual ideas about hygiene, for the time at least. Brilliant woman. Shav, Fleischer, Karnov, they dealt with training the troops. Tesla and Tamlin, they were in charge of figuring out how to take advantage of the items without making it obvious. We were amazing. The study we built around the factory, we took to calling it Site Alpha. It was self-supporting. Agents, researchers, operatives. Not by those names, of course, but those positions. We expanded. I'm sorry. I'm an old man. I know I don't look it, but the body lies. The mind doesn't always remember right. Sometimes I get lost in my memories. Things get confused. But the long and simple of it is, we used the factory. It always seemed to have more rooms to put things in. Back then, that was the word for them. Things. No skips then. No. We thought we had the factory tamed. That's one of the reasons I refuse to quit this job. If there's anything I can do here, it's remind people that we will never tame these things. Contain them, yes, but as it's all able, tame them, never. After a decade or so, we were pretty organized. The original 13 of us were being called by numbers, not names. We knew how to make things work. And if a thing or two vanished at the factory, still, in the occasional D-class? What? Oh, yeah, we had D-class back then. Disposables, that's where the D came from. Had to have someone to test things on. Tesla and Tamlin were very firm about that. But yes, sometimes we lost people who didn't matter. Bright, was fond of saying it was the factory taking its toll. You can't get something for nothing. 1911 was when all went wrong. Things, we call them fairies. An entire race of things, living beside us. They could look the same as you or I. The only obvious difference was an allergy to iron. Yes, that's why we call them fairies. No, you haven't heard of them. Why? Because it's the one time the Foundation wiped out an entire race of things. Root and branch. And I'm the one who did it. We'd been hunting them for some time. We'd run into them a time or two before, always come out on top. So when a certain royal asked us for our help, of course we were going to have them in our debt. We've always enjoyed having people in our debt, after all. We sent out a team to help, take care of what we thought was a hunting party. And the next time we saw them, their heads were on poles, attached to the saddles of the creatures the fairies rode when they attacked the factory. It was horrible. 3 words, but they convey so much. I have never... I'm sorry, give me a moment here. I've never told this part to anyone, and you should consider yourself lucky. And if you tell anyone any of what I'm about to impart on you, I will not just kill you. I will kill everyone who shares your DNA in the worst ways possible. You'll think Procedure 110 Montauk is a walk in the park compared to what I do to you. We lost. The things came and they destroyed us. rode over our emplacements, slaughtered our people, shrugged off our weapons like they were nothing. I watched my 13 go down left and right, just trying to hold the factory. And I, their leader, their friend, their father figure, godfather to Bright's 4 young children, confidant, sometimes lover, always the confessor. I ran. I ran like a scared little schoolboy deep into the dark guts of the factory. I was chased by the things, always just one step ahead. I could hear them behind me, feel their breath on my neck, and I came to a door. One I'd never seen before. Bronze, covered in Arabic script of some sort. I've never been one for languages, especially the curvy shit they use. But I didn't care. They were coming for me, and I threw the door open and dived in. Everything inside was different. There was a feeling of peace, that nothing could hurt me here. The light was this dark red, but still felt right. My ears filled with the steady thrumming of a giant heartbeat, and in front of me were the remains of Anderson. It spoke to me then, but I'd be damned if I could tell you exactly what it said. What it told me was more meaning than exact. It offered me hope. It told me that each of the things we had used from the factory, no matter what we did with them, fed it, helped it grow. But if the fairies took the factory, they would destroy it, and we couldn't have that. It offered me a deal of sorts. It could remove this event, make it have never happened. All I needed to do was give it us. I didn't want to. I knew it was a bad idea, but then I saw them again. My family, my friends, dead. Dead by the hands of those bastards. I agreed. It smiled, and I found myself once more on the ramparts, watching the horde of fairies crest the hill. My foundation alive once again, and in my hands a weapon. I won't bore you with the details, but we slaughtered them all. And with these new weapons we continued to do so. Everywhere they lived, everywhere they bred. My fellow O5s, they questioned my decision, thinking we should save some, in case we might ever need them. I overruled them. We moved away from the factory after that. Shut it down, moved our things out of there, changed the name from things to special containment protocols, focusing more on containing them and not anything else. The others were curious, but understood I had my reasons. I boarded up the factory, locked it shut, buried it under tons of rubble, saying it was too dangerous. I thought I had gotten away with it. Until I found a thing on my desk. One of the old toy guns that shot real bullets. It had a factory label on it. I've sent people in, from time to time, to see what it might be doing. Last time I sent people in to look around, there was nothing there. We keep finding factory items out there. I can't help but think about how many more we don't find. The people who use them would keep it hidden. I think about the body telling me how each time the items were used, it gave energy to the factory. I never asked it energy for what. I don't think I want to know. What do we give it? D-class, mostly. Where did you think all those bodies went? There's a place, bodies are left, and they vanish. Everyone thinks I'm a genius for figuring it out. Sometimes I have to feed it other things. Researchers, agents. They never know it's coming, it just reaches out and takes them. In the end, we're doing more good by being here. Whatever the factory wants, whatever it is, we're doing good here. I have to believe that. And now you know. Are you happy? I didn't think so. Why tell you? I'm getting old, Everett. Should I die, someone will have to keep feeding it. Maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll find a way to stand up to it. I doubt it, though. Good night, old friend.